Guten Tag.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm here with Nyph. I'm going to do one of my grilled interviews with him. I always like to start usually like at the beginning of someone's career almost. And so one thing some people might not know about you is they'll know you from all of your time in SK, you've been in SK for so long, but you were one of the people who played in season 1, and you played for this German team, gamed like !DE, and it was you, it was Kevin, and it was CandyPanda all in this one team, who obviously now are all in SK. Your team didn't do that well at the season 1 finals. Like 3 of the players now of SK who we all know are good. Was your team actually good back then and you just did really badly at the finals? What was it? Were you like just okay? What do you think of that period of your time?
I think that we had like one weaker link in our team at that time. And since we were only a German team, we kind of had to take only German guys because we wanted to speak German at that time. It was way easier than English. And I think that was one of the reasons why we didn't do that good. But I think at that time, Kevin, Candy and me were pretty good. Like they also said like we were one of the best bot lanes at that time. Like the Sona were really good at that time. No one picked it but me, and it's like, I know, it was just, she was so good and no one wanted to pick it, but yeah.
So obviously that's actually something in your career that's been quite famous, is this bot lane with CandyPanda, because everyone's always commented throughout the time you're at SK as well, like how well it works. Was it, even when you were back in game DE, was it like similar to how you play now? Were you like the sort of bot lane where you just immediately, it just worked how it works now, or how did it develop to become so good?
Well, at the beginning, like I played with another support. We had Osaf in our team too, so we kind of swapped around always, and then I don't know, we depended on the games, and then luckily it was me who played the qualifier, and then we decided to go with that team to the World Finals at that time. And I think it was also kind of the Sona pick because it was super strong at that time. And then I don't know, it just developed, and I don't know, we got a good connection on the bot lane.
When I did my interview with CandyPanda, and I was asking him like how you play, the first thing people always say when they talk about Nyph is they say like, oh, he's passive. And so explain to me, like, is this how you see yourself, as like a passive support? Are you more like defensive? You don't want like to dive in? Is that accurate?
I think it's pretty accurate. Like, I don't take too many risks. Like, if I see an opportunity, then obviously I take it. But I don't like the high risk, high reward thingy. Like for me, it's more like you take a little risk and you will go out of the lane better than anyways. Like you can always farm in my eyes if you even have the wall set up on the bot lane, so I don't know. But yeah, I think I'm more passive.
It feels like in general in all players in League of Legends, when fans look at them, they always prefer like the aggressive players because they see them do like highlight plays when it works. But if there's passive players, they either get like underrated or people don't know how good they are because they're just seeing like defensive plays or smart plays, and maybe it doesn't end in a kill or something, you know. Do you think in general, for a support player, should the support player be a more defensive-oriented player, do you think, in a team?
I think both ways works pretty good. Like there are some really good offensive support players like mithy who plays Blitzcrank, Thresh, and you see as it works, obviously. And then there are some who like I am, who play more defensive, but it works too. It's just the kind of play style you play.
Okay. Who are the like defensive supports who you think of, who like you like their style or you think they're really good?
Well, in the past, Melisson played kind of the same champion as I did, like Genja and heroes like that. I don't remember all, but I think he was more like I am, and I know, so probably some as Pumandu in OGN. He plays also like Nami a lot, and like this ranged supports and stuff.
Over the years, obviously, like what champions are strong is going to affect how you can play your position. Was there a period for your style of how you like to play support that was like the best for champions? Is it now? Was it a period in the past? What do you think?
Yeah, I think actually right we saw the season 1 final where actually my heroes like Sona, Genja, that's what I used to like a lot. Like actually at that time you didn't play like Blitzcrank or heroes like this, and Thresh wasn't even there. So the offensive supports at that time were actually only Acer and Taric, but they weren't that good at that time. So right now it's pretty balanced and you can play either way.
One of the things that is so interesting about bottom lane duos is the idea that obviously it's not like one player can just play his own style only. He has to think about how his partner's going to play. So Is it just the case because your duo is so good with CandyPanda that like naturally you just fit, or do you change your play in some special way to play with him compared to other ADs?
I don't think I change my playstyle too much if I play with him or with other ADs. But it's also a thing about the communication. Like when he says that he wanna go in, then obviously I have to follow him, and when I say back, then obviously he has to follow me too. So it's always like a connection, like, and how good you work together.
Since you've played support for so long with CandyPanda, how would you describe, like, from his style of AD, what does he need from a support? Like, what should a support do to make CandyPanda look really good?
I think what he have to do is like good warding, so we always know where the jungle is, so we don't get ganked. Then maybe in the brush, if there's like a blitzkrieg or something, then good positioning, like against blitzkrieg or something, where I have sometimes some problems. Like we actually just have to stay in the creeps and then just trade, but sometimes I pussy out or something and then I just get grabbed and I die. So it's, yeah, I think you have to vision control and pressure on the lane is pretty important, so he can do his thing and then he'll be fine.
When we said before about how some of the very good offensive supports, like people like Madlife, or you could maybe even say someone like Edward, part of what has made them so famous is that with champions like Blitzcrank and then now Thresh, you can like have highlight plays even if you're a support player. When a champion like Thresh comes along, does it make you actually, do you have to play more aggressive yourself, or can you use it still with like a defensive style? Has it made you change at all if you play that character?
Yeah, I was kind of forced to play him too. Like at the beginning, I wasn't sure if he's that strong actually, but then in time showed that he's pretty strong, and like when he came out, he was pretty much the best support hero. So I had to train him because if you don't, you just have to ban him every single game, and that's what is really bad for your team, because you have to ban this hero all the time. If you can handle the hero, it's fine too, but I think he was just too strong at that time. Right now it's better, so you don't have to play him anymore, and you see the pick way less common than before.
Early in your career in SK, you guys had Snoopeh and you had Wickd before they went to CLG.EU. When you used to play with them, and then you saw them later become really successful in CLG.EU, do you think that they were the same type of players when they were in SK as they were in CLG?
Yeah, I think they still play the same. Like Wickd still plays the tanks, like Irelia, Sek, Malphite, and he was like this. He always used to play this and loves it. I think if he plays other heroes, he's slightly worse. And Snoopeh always has those kind of supportive junglers like Amumu and Maokai, but he's not that good anymore, so he plays more like Nasus now and stuff. So I don't think people change too much. Like you can play specific heroes, but I think the style of heroes you play normally doesn't change.
Since, like I mentioned, some people maybe who didn't know about the game DE period will think, oh, that you started playing with Kevin when he came in after Wickd left. Though they might think that's the order of how things went, okay. And so in that order, it looks like he's having to replace this really awesome top laner Wickd, and it's like, he's not so known, but actually you'd already played with him in the past. When he came into SK, he's become quite well known as a good top laner now. Did he like have to change his style to take that position? Was he always playing the same style that he uses now? How do you describe it?
Well, Kevin used to play mid as well, so he played like Veigar and Kragas and all those old school AP heroes. So he kind of had to change his champion pool. Like he switched to Irelia and all those heroes who were good at the time. Jax, he loves those kind of heroes, so like the assassin, the fighters who just fight with each other. So I think at the beginning it was hard for him to get into the role, but after some time he became really good and he's really awesome.
I know there was a period in 2012 where you actually did a swap. You had Ocelot go top and Kevin go mid. And the way I heard it described, even by Ocelot, was like Kevin was doing okay mid, but then Ocelot had problems top, so he was like, I want to switch back again. If for some reason we were only thinking of Kevin, if he'd have just stayed permanently mid, could he have been like, what do you think he would have been like if he only played mid for the rest of his career? Would he be like the best mid in Europe? What do you think?
I think so. I think he could be really good in mid lane. Like, he still loves it actually. He still sometimes with Kassadin, yeah, he does. And I think if he would swap, I think he would do really good. And we also swapped one game, like in the LCS, where he played Zed mid against Alex Ich, just because he played Zed at that time and then he swapped around. But yeah, I think he would do really good.
Is it just champions he plays, or is it something specific about his playing style, how he does it mid?
Well, I think it's also the champions he likes, is the mid heroes more. Like he can play top, and he likes him now too. But I think maybe he would love to play mid. Actually, I'm not quite sure.
Since you've played with CandyPanda for so long in your career total, like taking out the part where you weren't, like when I did the interview with CandyPanda, I think I'd measured the months, and it was already like 19 total months at that time or something. So now it must be like easily over 20, obviously. I wanted to ask, like, the longer you play with someone, in theory, okay, the more you don't necessarily need to say something, maybe they just know what you're going to do. Is there like a point in your time playing together where you already were kind of at the best communication, or does it literally just keep getting better and better and better all the time to now? Or was there like a threshold that you hit where it's like, that's about as good as it can get, you know?
I think you always have to repeat it and do it all the time. If you once stop doing it, like communication, you fall down and you will notice it. Like you always have to talk how to engage situations, when to poke, when to back and stuff. Like when you play with Sona, for example, you always say when the cooldown's up, so I can Q him and W, so we win a trade actually, and then we go back. And it's really important to do this and to repeat it over and over again. It's like basic training. You have to do it. If you don't, then you will always fall back. And we had a time as well where we like kind of was. I think if you start training again and do it, then it's always good.
Actually, like you were mentioning here, how you have to call certain things out. Since you've played for so long, some people might imagine, oh, you guys must just know each other so well. You're almost like telepathic. You just know, oh, he's going to go there, I'll do this. Are you a bot lane that's very vocal? Are you shouting stuff out all the time and stuff, or are you quieter? You just know what you're going to do?
When it's a serious game, we are pretty vocal. We talk about everything, what's up, if the jungler could be here, if he's there or somewhere. We always ask where the jungler is. If he's like, or was mid, then we always ask if he's the bot side or top side, because if you know it's top side, then we don't have to ward and stuff. And we talk about how to engage situations all the time. And in training, sometimes we don't talk too much, but that's just because you can't do it all the time, and then it's pretty exhausting actually. But so actually, if you have to train, you should always do it, like, because if you train like not serious, then it won't help you.
Since you have played with one AD for so long, like I don't even know if there's another bot lane that's been played that long over their careers. I wanted to know, since you know Candy's style so well, what was it actually like to play with Yellowstar at the AD position?
Oh, it was totally different, to be honest. I think they're almost the same. Now not the same. It's like they've kind of the same playstyle. Let me say it like this. They all both play Ashe. They played Varus and all these heroes who are good. And I think both make more calls than the support, or like I used to do. And I had some troubles with Bro at the beginning. Like at that time, you always had to pick exhaust because it was just better than ignite. Right now, you can take 8 away. By that time, I had some problems to use exhaust properly, and we had a lot of discussion about it, and it was like up and down. But in the end, I think we did good, like at the Worlds, for example. But then just things went bad, and we split.
So you were mentioning there, like he likes to make more calls, Yellowstar. In general, like how much when you play with CandyPanda, who's the one like directing the play the most, do you think?
Like he's more like the offensive calls, and I'm more like the defensive calls, like where the jungle is, where to ward. No, you shouldn't engage here and stuff. But he's more like, oh, there's a good situation, let's go, and then it's like it just fits.
Okay. So there was this period after you had Yellowstar that a lot of people might not know about because it wasn't like very public, where very briefly you were like playing a little while with Rekkles just before he actually joined Fnatic. And the story I read actually about how he joined Fnatic was that basically he couldn't have joined SK because he was too young to play in Season 3, and Fnatic themselves even knew he was too young to play with them in Season 3, but they thought like, well, we need an AD like for this tournament we've got coming up, and so they just happened to use him, and it obviously went really well. It would be easy for you to say now, like, oh, I always knew he was going to be super amazing, and yeah, I wish we could have had him, but when you played with him, like, honestly, how good was he? Like, did you know he was as good as he is now?
I think at that time he was really good. Like, it was like, also like, it always depends which champions are good. And at that time, his Acer were like the best hero, so he just played the best hero in the game for the AD position. Also like Grace and Corki was really good at them. So it was easy for him actually to play really good there. Right now, he still plays good, like his Swain and other heroes are really strong from him, Twitch. But at that time, yeah, but it was about the champions. But I think he can transit it to good, like, and learn new champions.
So since I asked about CandyPanda, what does CandyPanda need from a support? What would rekkles need from a support, do you think, from the time you played with him?
I think he's also a bit more passive, and he waits more for the opportunities or like mistakes from the enemies. I don't think he creates too many plays by himself. Like that's what I have in my mind when I play with him. Like I played some solo queue with him every now and then too. So every time we do or like just meet each other, like I think he was challenger too. And then I don't know, it's really cool to play with him because he's more the same as I do actually.
So here's a very interesting question I never thought I'd be asking. So you played with Yellowstar at AD, you played a little while with rekkles. Now Yellowstar is going to try and be the support of rekkles. How can Yellowstar really be like as good as a full-time support if he's never played the role before?
I think yes, that's really good. Like also other positions, like he at the time when I played AD with him, or he played AD, like he also played jungle and solo queue and everything, and he did really good. Like also his Scion back then was really awesome, and I think he's doing really good in the support position right now. I think he's still to learn some things, but he's doing good.
One of the things that people often used to wonder about the SK lineups was that if we look in general, when all those players were coming in and out in 2012, it seemed like it's always the jungler that had to get changed in that year. Was there something that your team like missed from the jungle position? Like, what do you think you were looking for before you knew what you got in hyrqBot? You know, what was your team looking for in the jungler?
Yeah, I think we had some problems with the jungle position. At that time, was super hard to get a really good jungler, and I don't know. I think we just needed some kind of pressure out of it. Like, we can trust him that he will do good. And with hyrqBot now, I think we found finally an awesome jungler he's pretty smart, and he does a lot of good things for us and helps us to really win the lanes actually. And I think we would do way worse without him.
When you were trying all those different junglers out, most of them didn't actually get that long in the team. They maybe got like 1 or 2 tournaments, or some of them never even played a tournament. They played like 3 weeks and then they didn't pass the trial or whatever. If you'd been forced to pick one of them, and you can't just wait for hyrqBot, who would have been the one who'd have had the best chance actually in the long run of fitting, do you think?
I think before we try out Svenskjern and another one, I'm not quite sure, but I think I would take Svenskjern. Like, he played aggressive too, but I think he's more like Shaker right now, who can go either way. Like, either way it snowballs really good for you, or he dies in the jungle and then it snowballs in the other way. But it's better to have a jungler like this than someone who doesn't do that much of a place.
I know from hearing interviews with other bot lanes, like actually having junglers who know when to do like a gank bottom lane can really help you out. So when I did an interview with CandyPanda and asked him what he thought of adding hyrqBot, he said like that was the key thing he thought, like how good his timing was on when to do a gank. Like how would you describe like the difference playing with hyrqBot from all the other junglers you've ever played with? Like what does he do differently, or what's his strengths?
I think he ganks all lanes. Like some junglers just prefer top lane or mid lane or bot lane, and he can gank either lane, and he always has like some crazy ganks which you would never expect, and then it kind of works out. And I think that's the key point. Like he's kind of like Diamond, like a bit unexpected, and yeah, I think that's the big thing.
So from how you're describing it now, it sounds like some of it's almost unexpected to you, even in the game. How vocal is he? Does he like call in advance, like, oh, in a minute I'm going to come and gank this area? Does he just like say, I'm coming now, and then he comes in? What is he like as a player?
If you tell him what summoners are up, where wards are and stuff, like he thinks about it and then he takes a decision. And normally this decision is really good, but you have to feed him with information. And if you do that, he can do it properly and make something good out of it.
In the spring split, your team, like most people thought, like performed above expectation by coming 3rd, but then in the playoffs you ended up 4th. I heard some people say that they thought your strength during the season was because each week you only play each team like 1 time, that you were like the best at coming up with like the strategy that you would use that week, like an unusual strategy or something that worked really well against one. Do you think this is accurate about how the spring regular season went?
I think for some games it counts, yeah. Like we think about a lot about level 1, and you can snowball a game easily if you do a good level 1. Like we always tried it. Like right now it's pretty hard to do something because there are not a lot of options. But back then you could do a lot of stuff, and it worked out really good for us. And I think that's one of the reasons why we snowball so good. And we prepare for every team. Like we talk like some hours about every team, like possibility picks and bans, and like normally we know exactly what they're gonna pick and what we're gonna pick. So normally it should be in our favor unless it shows that it's not.
Like I was describing before, actually, when people think of you, they often say like you're a passive player, etc. And so as a result, you're not going to have like highlight movies all the time, like a Mad Life or someone. But I've actually seen you're almost like a. Okay, there's a weird scenario that sometimes happens, right, where everyone knows that someone's good, but because he's never picked as like the best in his region, everyone calls him underrated. But if everyone calls you underrated, really that's like they're also saying you're all really good, etc. So everyone always says like Nyph could be like, he might be like the best support in Europe, or he's so underrated. Like, how do you compare yourself to the rest of the EU region? Are you like different to them all? What do you think of yourself?
I think right now I'm pretty good, I would say. Like I had some up and downs. Like some tournaments I played really bad, some played really good.
What are your strengths?
Well, like lately I learned a lot about like vision control, and I think that's super important if you're a support player. Like if you win a vision control, normally it's like super easy for your teammates to do something. And I think that aspect of support is like where people not talk too much about, but some are really awesome at that point. And I think I learned a lot of mithy as well. Like, yeah, like we train a lot, and then like the ping bots and like laning control and stuff. It's really good. And I think my strengths are like, I think warding too. I think I'm doing pretty good. I always try to tell my teammates too that they have to buy wards because I just can't ward alone. But it's always a team thing. But if you do it properly together and then unward together and stuff, it works really good. And I think like for me it's easy when the enemies make mistakes. I can capitalize so easy out of it. Like once they give us something, I just take it. I think that's one of my strengths.
So if I asked you to pick like the best series or the best match, like if I wanted to say like this is like Nyph at his absolute best, what example would you pick for me? Which game? Like one specific game, probably the Thresh game at Tenerife, I think it was. That was like 8-1 or something, 8-1, 15. Probably I stole too many kills though, but I think that game I was really good. When you were talking about vision control here, I know in Korea, this is like one of the areas that they judge how good the support is, because some of them, like Mata or Mad Life or something, are known to be like excellent vision control. Was this an area that Europe was underdeveloped in before recently? What do you think?
I think yeah, like I think supports buy you way too many items. Like as you can see there, they have maybe sidestone at the end of the game, and if it's really a good game for the team, then he maybe has one item more. Like here, people buy more items for supports, and I think people run even gold runes sometimes, and I changed it too because on the lane you just have maybe more pressure if you just take HP or AD runes or something like this, and then you just have to buy more pink wards, and that's really expensive. So, but I think that's one of the reasons the Korea was so good before. I think Europe catched up right now.
Do you ever watch LCS NA?
Yeah, I do. I watched pretty every area. Maybe in China not too much because it's hard to get to see the matches, but I think they have an English stream right now too, so probably I will watch some games there too.
What do you think of the NA supports? Are there any like you would pick out, like I like this guy or I like this about this other guy?
Well, Edward is there now, so
okay.
He was always, I always loved him, like how he plays and stuff, and he plays kind of different compared to others. Like every time I played against the Gambit bot lane, you have this strange feeling that every time you miss move you die or something, and they capitalize on mistakes so hard too. Like and they always used to freeze a lot, and back then it was really good. Right now things changed a bit, I guess, but he has something in his playstyle. It's really hard to play against, I think. And then also I think Special is really good. Like I think he's more like I am actually. Like he likes his range supports and the passive. Like he also used to play a lot of Genja. He also played in the All-Star games, I think, and I think he also plays Thresh, but I don't think he's that good. Like, I think you see it if someone has like the potential with those aggressive supports and some not.
The interesting thing is, I actually did an interview with Genja, and I asked him a lot of questions about Edward and his bot lane, obviously. And okay, you can understand because Edward's left that now he might want in his mind to like move on and be like, oh, it's not a big deal that he left. You know, we were good, but we weren't that amazing. But a lot of his answers were quite strange to me. He made it almost sound like Edward was like making bad judgments all the time by being so aggressive, and you know, Genja would like not want to do that, and so sometimes he'd have to like calculate, oh, I don't think this is going to work, so I'll just let him die and I'll back off. Like, when you've played against their bot lane so many times when they had those two players, is he like exaggerating this? Was there like a total clash of styles? Did you think it worked?
I think it worked out for them. I mean, they always had some problems, and I knew about it. But in the end, I think it worked out for them. Like, Genja was more of the passive guy, but he follows up when Edward makes a place. So it kind of worked out for them. And I think they were one of the best bot lanes for a long time.
Because what I wanted to ask you was, usually when you think of like bot lane as a good example, because it's like an obvious synergy that has to be there for them to do well. So usually you'd think like as people it'll help if you like each other, and in playing styles it'll help if you have like similar styles. But it sounds like as people they like didn't like each other, and then in playing styles they had like the opposite style. So what do you think it was that like worked about that? Like, how would you describe playing against their bot lane of this aggressive support and this defensive AD? What was it? Was it even comparable to anyone else?
I think they were pretty unequal, and I think most of the credits belongs to Edward. Like, after he left, I think he left a really huge gap in Gambit, and you recognized it. And for me, it was way easier to play against him after that. And I think it was just really him who won the lane.
So in your team, you're obviously like being more of the defensive-minded person as the support. If we imagine for some reason you had to play with Genja, and he's this very passive, very calculating AD, would you still be able to play your normal style? Would you have to do some? Would you have to become more aggressive? What do you think?
I think it would work out. I think it would be more like when I played with rekkles, like you just farmed and then you wait for the opportunity. And I think it's probably not so exciting to watch, but probably it would be like 0-0 all the time and just a pretty high CS farm. But if the enemies make a mistake, of course, we would go for a kill or something.
In general, in terms of your philosophy of how a bot lane should play the bottom, do you think like if it's possible to just not get into any fights at all and just last as long as possible and then try and get the AD at the end of the game to carry, is that like the ideal way? Is it? Do you like at times to take risks and try and snowball the lane?
I think it really depends on the picks what you have. Like,
give me like an example.
Like with Vayne, for example. Like we used to play a lot of Vayne lately with Candy. Like they even bundled like 5 games in a row or something. Like you have to play at the beginning, just farm, and then just if you're 10 CS, it's fine. If you're more, well, it's not that good. But if you're just a bit behind, it's still good for you because Vayne scales much better than the other ADs. So it always depends on the picks you do. Like with Acer, for example, or with Sona and Acer, you poke a lot and you should be actually ahead. If you're not, then you lost the lane anyways. And it really depends how you and what picks you have, and that you know how to play with those picks.
Okay, I have like a criticism that I've seen repeated on Reddit a few times since SK did badly this season. So I want to describe it like this. If we think about how well the team did in the spring season, a lot of people said the reason why that worked, okay, so people saw that hyrqBot came in and they were like, he's a really good jungler. They already thought Kevin was like a top player, and your bot lane's quite famous for being good. So the only position that people would blame would be Ocelot. But since your team did well, they thought, oh, he's like adapted well to the style of like playing passive in the mid and like just trying to go even or try to pick a champion to help the team composition. Were there problems with that style this season? Because a lot of people are still going to say all the other positions are really good and they think these are top players in Europe. Was there a problem with the mid at all?
Yeah, I think there was a problem. Like, he had some problems to change his champion pool. Like, in the end of the summer split, he finally did it. He plays like Zed now and Karthus, what he used to hate so much. And I think that we couldn't pick those kind of heroes before. We had some really big troubles with, like we always had to bundle around mid heroes and stuff. It was kind of, yeah, I think that was one of the points. I think it was way better at the end of the season.
Okay. If you look at how weird the season was in the regular season in summer, so up and down, and we had so many teams go top of the league and then suddenly they're 6th in the league or whatever, at the end of the season, ignoring like what you know about the playoffs, was the way it was ranked at the end really like accurate, do you think? Was there a team who you actually thought were going to do way better, but then for some reason they dropped towards the end? What do you think in how the season played out?
I think the summer season was pretty weird from my eyes. Like, I expected us to be way better too.
And what were you thinking you were going to be?
I expected us to be like top 4, top 3. Like, I know, it just didn't. We had a lot of problems, but it's another topic. And I thought Expelled that like Fnatic would do much better, but I think they had some problems too with all those changes and stuff. And I think that's what actually was for the most teams. Like Alternate were really good at the beginning, but then they lost Creaton unfortunately, and then there were a lot of ups and downs because a lot of the swaps were in the summer split. Like in the spring split, there were not many changes compared to the summer split. So I think that's one of the reasons why there are so many up and downs.
What's been interesting about LCS Summer in total is that if we look at it, okay, so Lemon Dogs won the European side of things, and then in NA it was Cloud9 who won, and both of these teams were teams who like got in, but then people didn't necessarily know that they were going to be top teams, and the players in them as well hadn't necessarily ever been top players before, but now in theory they're like one of the best, if not the best in their region. Has something changed about the game or the meta game that suddenly means these new players are suddenly so good? Because we'd expect like the old names, you know, like the Frog and people like these to be the best still.
Yeah, I think the game kind of changed a lot. Like Season 2 is totally different compared to Season 3. Like all the champions who were viable are not viable, or most of them are not anymore. And also the playstyle that you swap 1 versus 2 and stuff like this, it's totally different. You can't compare actually. Like a lot of old players have a lot of problems to play the new playstyle. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why they're kind of bad right now compared to the new ones, because they just play the game, and then it's also like what I said before with the champions who are good, and if it fits you, it's like perfect for you.
A hypothetical question here. If we imagine for some reason you wake up tomorrow and SK doesn't exist, and you're just like a different, you're the same player, the same mind, etc., but you're on a different team. Which other team in the world, if we were to just put you in as the support and you're going to play with them from now on, what would be a good fit? What would be like a team where you could make them good, they'd make you good? Could be from anywhere.
That's a good question. I think I could fit quite good in Fnatic.
Fnatic, why?
Yeah, I don't know, I always liked how they play. Like, back then when we couldn't beat them at all, like, there was something in their playstyle. It's like the same with the Gambit bot lane. There's something in their playstyle but it's super annoying to play against. And I would like to see how they actually play and stuff. I think, and also I think I could just fit there. It's like, you know, I just like how they play.
So so it sounds like there's still, even though you've played them so many times, there's still something mysterious, like you're still not sure what they're doing to beat you?
No, like, I think we learned a lot of how they played and stuff, and we could beat them three times this season, so I think we learned our lesson.
Okay. So for my last question, I like to do like an imaginary one, and it always goes like this. Okay, aliens come to Earth, they kill all of SK, except you, of course, you know, aliens are kind like that. But what they tell you is, they want to remake this version of SK, but they want you to pick other players from around the world. In fact, no, I'll do it like this actually, to make it more interesting. You can only pick players from NA, and they have to either be like the player they're replacing, like Kevin, Ocelot, or they were people who could play that style. Who would come to your mind? Like, who do you want in each position, except you?
Okay, that's a tough one. I think for top lane, Dyrus kind of plays the same heroes. Like he always plays those tanks lately, I think. Like he likes Shen, but Kevin plays like too. I'm not sure if he plays Zac actually, but I think so. Okay. I think Dyrus for top lane. For mid, maybe even Reginald. Like, yeah, they used to play the same heroes like back in Season 2. Like also played Cassiopeia, then he played Cassiopeia, he played LeBlanc, then he played LeBlanc and stuff like this. So I think they're more kind of those players. Jungle, I think Jungle is pretty hard, because I don't think there's anyone who plays like Chun. No, but let me think. No, actually I don't know. Maybe Nyx or Ninten X, or how is he called? Yeah, this guy. I think he plays more like him. But I don't watch the NA jungles too much.
So AD carry?
AD carry, I think Karx used to play like Candy a bit. Like played Graves and all those heroes. But actually Karx is more passive, I think. But I would probably pick Karx.
Okay. So do you have anyone you want to thank, or?
Like the TSM.
You always like TSM? Why?
I don't know, I think they're kind of the same. I don't know.
Ah, okay. Similar to this,
yeah.
So do you have anyone you want to thank or say hello to at the end of this interview?
Just thanks to all the fans who came here even though we didn't play and talked to me. I really appreciate it, and it was a good time here and quite enjoyed it. And also thanks to everyone, to our sponsors and to my family.
Danke.
Bitteschön.